Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Ashley Mailloux, taking a look at the feature race at Santa Anita on Saturday. Race number 8 is for two-year-old fillies going 3/4 of a mile. It is the Anoakia Stakes. Let's take a look at this field. Only 5 in here, Ashley, but it's a pretty competitive group led by the number 3 Dua, who earned a grade 2 placing last time out going long in the Chandelier. And just watching that race, it just felt like that distance was a little too far for her.
Yeah, and just seeing her connections now wheel her back to 3/4 of a mile. I think they're thinking the same thing. And, there's a couple of horses in here that have limited experience. I mean, everyone has really limited experience, but the horse on the rail just with the one start and the horse on the outside with just those 2 races. And I think from a pace perspective, it makes it a little interesting. But when you watch Dua on debut, she didn't necessarily need the lead. She was just able to sit quite close to it and make a move. And I think that might be key for her in this spot.
Good point about the pace, however, because several of these fillies have similar running styles. We throw up the Timeform US pace projector. We see Sandy Bottom, who was a gate to wire debut winner back at Del Mar. She might make a short lead, but Dua's going to be right there. Becky's Dream showed a lot of precocity and speed before going on a little bit of a layoff. Maybe these 3 hook up and perhaps we can get an upset, or maybe the 4 Tambo falls into a trip.
Yeah, Tambo is probably the horse on paper you would think might fall into the trip the most, just based on what we've seen so far. But they're only going 6 furlongs, so I don't know, how much stamina you really need in terms of this race. And I think with it being a compact field with a couple of speedier horses in here, it really becomes a rider's race in the end.
Let's watch the debut try from Sandy Bottom. This is a daughter of the exciting first crop sire, Omaha Beach. And what I liked about this race, Ashley, is that this horse took some severe pressure down the backstretch. There were 3, 4 other horses to her outside. She shrugged them all off, and she's very professional striding away. She certainly deserves an opportunity to step up into stakes competition, and I think she's a major contender.
Absolutely, and just to see how forward she was from the get-go for her to kick on like that, I think that says a lot about her, especially on a debut, and been interesting to watch these Omaha Beach offspring so far from what we see from that sample, and, I think Michael McCarthy putting her in the spot, it's a good spot to test her off, a pretty nice debut.
The number 2 Chiki Gals also by a first crop sire. That's Maximus Mischief, and she was no secret for her debut at Del Mar. She was bet down to 3-2 in a 9-horse field, and she lived up to the backing with the game score. Maybe they aimed just a little bit too high against the divisional leader in the Del Mar debutante.
I think so, and I think looking at the top couple finishers in there in terms of her number, her buyer from her winning race, a 59 wasn't necessarily going to be as competitive as the other 2, especially the top 2 in there. And now they're going to cut her back in distance. That should help her, but it's still not an easy spot for her. There's some horses that I think, in terms of their figures, they're right there with her.
Dua is the morning line favorite in this race and is probably the horse to beat. A very game debut winner going 5/8 of a mile. She had the misfortune to take on the talented Dreamfire second time out in the Sorrento, and then she ran in the Chandelier and she ran okay first time 2 turns. Chatalas got the jump on her out of the gate. She made the lead in the rail. Dua's in with a chance here, but I just think she didn't stay the trip.
I don't think she stayed the trip, and she was pressing throughout. And I just think stretching from 6 furlongs to a mile and a 16th, Bob's horses either do it or they don't. And I don't want to say that she wasn't able to do it, but I do think she might just be more of a one-turn horse at this point in her career as a 2-year-old. And I think looking at the debut, we talked about that earlier. I liked her debut to see the way that she was able to win in the trip that she got. So for her, this is certainly class relief out of those last 2.
Tambo dipped into a high-level maiden claimer in her second lifetime start and won with a pace-pressing try. They tried turf in 2 turns last time out. She was far from disgrace. I think that's an excellent prep for her turning back into this 6 furlong race because it might allow her to relax and let these speeds go on with it.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, she was close last time out, but you look at the fractions, what could the fractions be here? I think, she's going to get a trip from just off the pace. And we mentioned we do think the pace could be at least contested. I don't know how hot it will be. And I think looking at this performance from her, it was a really good effort overall. And she has to be gritty to the wire, was going 5.5. So I'm excited to see her back on the dirt on the cutback, like you mentioned.
Very professional performance we just saw in that maiden claiming race. She got looked right in the eye and she simply refused to lose. Becky's Dream showed a tremendous amount of precocity earlier this year, a debut winner in late May. And then in her second lifetime start, the Fasig-Tipton debutante, she showed good speed. She shrugged off some pace challengers for a while, but this has been an issue for her in both starts. She doesn't change leads, and I wonder if that cost her in the final 16th.
You would think it might have just because you can see she is getting tired when she's still staying on the same lead and not switching, and her rival is able to wear her down in the end, that being Grand Slam Smile. And the other question I have with her is just a fitness thing. We haven't seen her since mid-June. It's a little bit of a gap in between her races, and she's been working consistently, and it just makes me wonder why they haven't found a race for her maybe to prep for this, but maybe this is just what they've been pointing to all along.
Let's take a look at our top selections. There's some very promising 2-year-old fillies at Santa Anita on Saturday. Dua just looks like the class of the race right now. Maybe she doesn't have the most true upside potential of any in this field, but she's the now horse, I think, unfortunately at a short price.
Very short price, and I'll be curious to see how short it is come post time. But I think based on what we've seen from her, she really hasn't run a poor race, as you've mentioned too. Back in the Sorrento, she had to face Dreamfire, who we know is very, very talented and was a next out winner. And I think for her, just cutting back, she doesn't necessarily need the lead to win. I just think it comes down to trip. She'll be forward enough, and probably her class carries her here.
I'm feeling a little bit of remorse that I didn't put your second pick, at least second, Sandy Bottom, because I think she has a ton of upside. That was a nice debut effort, but it could be all about Dua in our feature at Santa Anita on Saturday. Good luck.